So I'm Victor Perton. I am the Chief Optimism Officer of the Centre for Optimism, and I'm joined by my co-conspirators in Project Optimism, Jenny Boymel. Say hi, Jenny. Noreen.
Hi.
And our absolute special guest, Nicki Hutley.
Hello.
Now, she doesn't need a long introduction because you're all here to hear Nicki and join in our hour of optimism. I first saw Nicki performing publicly when I switched on the television during the last election campaign. And Nicki was speaking to the Canberra Press Club. And this crusty old journalist got up and asked the question, said, is there a difference between female economists and male economists? And Nicki just smiled back and said, no. The great divide in Australian economics is between the optimists and the pessimists. And you can imagine that Nicki is here because she squarely put herself in the camp of the optimists. She runs a fabulous consultancy, Economics for a More Equitable and Sustainable World. So any of you who are doing strategy and the like, you need an economist to do your scenario planning. You need an economist to help you make sense of the world. Nicki is your person. And as everyone here knows, the first question that we always ask our guests is what makes you optimistic? Nicki Hutley, what makes you optimistic?
Thank you, Victor. I'm sure everyone agrees that it can be just, these are the most trying times that we've lived through, and finding your optimism can be exceptionally hard. I can't think of a more difficult time, and, I've had my ups and downs with mental health throughout my life. But I don't know, I just have something of a sunny disposition. And so I look for the positive stories. You can imagine what it's been like being an economist for the last 18 months, when you need to know what's going on with the health to understand what the economic implications are. And then you look at the economic data. But amidst all of that, there are so many reasons to be optimistic. And as hard as everything is now, all you have to do is turn to the Reserve Bank Governor of Australia and hear him say, we have every reason to be optimistic. We are going to bounce back. We did it before and we will do it again. And I think that's the thing, the triumph of human spirit over adversity is amazing. My mum, when she was a kid, was living in war-torn Europe and came out here as a refugee as a young girl. And I know what she's been through. And through all of that, she's one of the funniest people that you'll ever come, to the life and soul of the party. And it's probably been a good lesson for me, is to think, all right, you can dwell on all of these negative data points. But how about you turn around and find, just for your own sanity, where is the good news that comes out of this? And I think about, working from home, increased flexibility. And yes, this is a terrible time. I am so happy. I tell you what, I'm optimistic because I'm glad that my kids left home. Woo, win for me. I can't imagine what it would be like to be at home with three kids, especially primary school young kids, all at your heels. But what we've also seen is that for a lot of women, this has just shown a lot of employees how we can be more flexible, how we can improve work-life balance for parents. And at the moment, it is mainly women, of course, but, for all caring parents. We've understood that, you don't have to commute every day, that people can get their time back, that we can work in more flexible arrangements. We're finding that unemployment obviously it's going to go in the wrong direction for a little while now, but just before the latest, the Delta outbreak, unemployment was at the lowest level that it had been in 10 years. And amidst all of the crisis that we're in, some of you may know I'm also a councillor on the Climate Council. Unfortunately, not in the federal government level, but at state government levels and right around the world, we are seeing many, many governments use COVID recovery stimulus to really invest in a green economy. And the thing is, you can find negative news wherever you look. That's what sells newspapers. We all know that. So the question is, how do you find the positives in all of that? And I like to think we don't always learn from our mistakes, but I think we're learning an awful lot now. And hopefully we will come out of this a stronger society, with a stronger, more flexible economy, and certainly with heading towards a greener economy. Because if COVID has taught us nothing, it's been an incredible indicator of the type of disruption that climate change will bring. And so it's fueled a lot of action right around the world. So, you know, the old saying, it's an ill wind that blows no one any good. So you just have to look for that good. And sometimes it takes Herculean effort. Sometimes I have to put on The Sound of Music and channel Maria von Trapp, you know, singing a few of my favourite things. But, you know, hopefully you've got a few favourite things around you. For me, it's obviously my family, but also my cats. I like to tune into the Zoo Cam at Taronga Zoo. If you get to know the times right, they now have added to the savannah. You can now look at the capybaras, they're just absolutely the best creatures, and the otters. They don't come out very often. And there's just joy to be found amidst gloom if you know where to look for it. And sometimes, as I say, it takes a Herculean effort. So I was just telling Victor just before we started, and I'm just going to get my little list here. I'm very into music. I sing in a choir. Unfortunately, it's gone online, which is not ideal, but music and singing is a real part of joy for me. Everyone's been talking about lockdown songs, but I decided to put together a list of songs for coming out of lockdown. Now, what we've got to look for. So the list goes like this. There's only a few of them. No More Lonely Nights by Paul McCartney. Get This Party Started by Pink. One from my kids, How Far I'll Go. It's from the Moana soundtrack, Disney movie. Don't Stop Me Now from Queen. And of course, Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. You can't possibly go without that one. Leaving on a Jet Plane by John Denver. Downtown, Petula Clark. Happy Together, the Turtles. Come Together, the Beatles. I'll Be There, the Four Tops. And one which we've all had to deal with, I've just had to postpone a Kakadu trip, Summer Holiday by Cliff Richard, because we'll all be looking forward to reigniting our summer holidays when this eventually gets to the end. So get your own list going. That's just my start. It does, you know, you put on some music and you dance around, and honestly, or put on a comedy, look for the joy, look for the positive bright spots. You can't ignore what's going on, but it just gives you that, you know, much like you'll take a drink and something to eat before you go on a run. It's stocking up your emotional wellness before you deal with your day-to-day job.
That is a masterclass in optimism. And what I found particularly interesting, Nicki, coming from a refugee family myself, and so does Jenny, and Noreen's a migrant, is that a country like Australia that is so much a country of refugees and migrants, optimism does tend to be higher in refugees, migrants, and the kids and grandkids.
Well, I think people who have escaped really difficult circumstances and have been given a second chance really grab that second chance, and they feel quite differently. You hear this about people who've, you know, been incredibly ill and faced their mortality. And I know we all have that, oh, you know, you should live each day as your last, but how many of us actually do that? You've got to sort of say, what is it that I love doing? And of course, you've still got to, you know, put on the washing and mop the floors or whatever, but find the time to do the things that bring you joy, because otherwise,
I'm listening to the
point.
Speaking of that sort of death, I had the loveliest thing happen to me last Tuesday. One of the hospital systems rang me and said one of our surgeons has asked for a second dose of Victor and Optimism. And it's just lovely, because what they wanted in the ED department and in cardiology was tools for themselves to remain optimistic, and those little tools for the patients as well. Noreen, you had something to share both with our audience and Nicki.
Well, I always think it's good to kind of circle back to the definition of optimism in these times. And then I was going to ask you a couple of questions, Nicki, as well. So the definition that we like to use at the Centre for Optimism and Project Optimism is the one that generates from the 14th century from Mother Julian of Norwich in England. And she lived through the Black Death, and she lived through the most terrible of times, but she was an eternal optimist, and good on her. And her motto and definition of optimism went something like, all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. Our modern take on that, that we like to use as a definition, is at its core, optimism is a belief that good things will happen and that things will work out in the end. And if they haven't, it's not the end. So with that backdrop in mind, Nicki, I was going to talk a little bit about natural optimism versus learned optimism. So I am not a natural optimist, unlike Victor and Jenny, who are very natural optimists. I've actually, and people are often surprised when they hear me say that, because I'm always been very optimistic for everyone else, but not so much for myself. And that's the difference, you know, and I've actually had to learn to be more optimistic for myself, and doing the work with Victor and Jenny and the habits course and everything. It's really, really helped. So I'm sort of living proof that you can actually learn to be an optimist. But I was wondering about your optimism. I mean, you've given us lots of ways that you are feeling optimistic, and your music and the things that you do, and you're looking at the animals in the zoo. So obviously you have ways of helping yourself to be optimistic. But I'm reminded of a quote that you gave to Victor, and I'm just wondering, would you describe yourself at the end of this as a natural optimist or a learned optimist? And what you said to Victor was, I don't know when this was, Nicki, but it was, I have to confess, I'm not always optimistic, but it's often at the bleakest of times that we see the best of humanity. In the end, I think it's seeing others striving to make the world a better place, inch by inch, that keeps me optimistic and motivated. So, Nicki, what do you say about that? And would you describe yourself as a natural optimist or a learned optimist?
I think I'm definitely a natural optimist, but I can go in cycles, I guess. And there's, you know, I think it's when things like, you know, what we're dealing with now, these sorts of times, it really, even the greatest optimist is under pressure. You know, there are moments when we're all going to feel a little bit gloomy, however optimistic you are about life. So I think even for a natural optimist, there's sometimes when you start steering off in the wrong direction, you've got to kind of go, whoa, I need to push myself back. But I do just naturally believe that things will be better, even when they're not great. And I think it's a wonderful, you know, I can't take credit for it. But it's a really helpful outlook on life. It helps you get through an awful lot. But I know I have had darker times, and my father always used to say, "This too shall pass," was his. And, you know, I have that as a little bit of a mantra for when I get in a headspace that I shouldn't be in or don't want to be in for long. It's that idea, and so I look for things that will steer me back to that. But I am a sunny, sort of happy person by and large, and I see so much good in the world. I'm really lucky through the work that I do. I see incredible disadvantage. I mean, working on a project at the moment, we're just finishing around, you know, kids from incredible areas of disadvantage, and the people who are working with them to overcome that disadvantage. And that's the thing, is that I see incredible people day to day doing incredible things on the environmental side. You know, my dear friend Natalie Isaac, who runs 1 Million Women, you know, bringing together all these individuals, not just women, but giving them things to hang on to, say, yeah, I can be part of this movement too. However small, I feel like I'm empowered to do something. And that helps me to feel optimistic that the world can change, notwithstanding some of the things that you see around you that make you feel less than optimistic. But you see what can be. And at the end of the day, I do believe that, you know, humans, we're not all great and we don't always do the right thing. But there are so many good people doing such good and amazing things that, you know, and if you think where civilization has gone, we have kind of improved in many ways. Yes, there's lots of challenges for us to overcome. But, you know, the standard of life for most people today is better. And I think the willingness of people to help others compared to even 200 years ago has changed astronomically. So there are terrific people out there who should give us cause for optimism, that there are problem solvers there trying to make the world a better place. We kind of tag along with them, you know, whether you're naturally optimistic or not, you know, find those things that can lead to help you get the optimism back or grow your optimism.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think there are lots of reasons, but you've got to look for them, right? And I think you were also, I think I read somewhere you said as well, that in these sort of bleaker times, we see such good in people. And we have to remind ourselves that there is still so much good out there. So I was actually going to bring Jenny in just to kind of talk a little bit about the things that we can do. Like Nicki, you've mentioned music and other sort of good habits to do during this time. But I was actually going to bring Jenny in to talk a little bit more about the habits and the things that we talk about. So for all those out there, Nicki helped us create the Habits of an Optimist course. She's an animated character. There's an animation on her regarding regulating your news, which is one of the habits, a very, very important habit. And it shows her cats, and it shows all the things that Nicki loves to do in life. And she talks about the habit of regulating your news. So please check it out in the habits. So thank you, Nicki, for doing that for us. Jenny, do you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Sure.
And have a chat with Nicki.
Thanks. So obviously, Noreen, kind of gave that introduction. There are all these habits that make it easier for us to live life. And I think, I always like to kind of quote the Dalai Lama in saying, choose optimism, it feels better. And I think, like, at its core, that it's just such a simple message. And I think I would say lucky in that I am a natural optimist. That's just how my brain works. Doesn't mean that I don't have times also where I feel a bit sorry for myself and, and things don't feel like they're going the right way. But it just means that I see things as a learning experience. So what we've done is we've kind of collated a whole range of habits to try to help people adopt them. So Nicki, maybe we'll have a chat first about that first habit, the one that you were involved with, which is regulate your news intake. Now, obviously, you open your iPhone and it sends you news automatically. You turn on the radio, your alarm goes off, it sends you news. Everywhere and anywhere you can see news all around us. A lot of that news, unfortunately, is quite negative. Can you just share your thoughts on this? Well, what are your suggestions in terms of helping people regulate their news intake?
Yeah, great question. And especially at the moment, it's almost like there's this, because many of us are working from home, there's this, especially in Sydney, where 11 o'clock is the hour of doom every day. And it's almost like there's this inexorable force luring you towards the television. I will watch the number drop. When, of course, that's day to day is just not going to change what's, where we're at. And it reinforces all the negativity that's happening. Afghanistan, I don't need to keep telling you all here, because the point of today is not to sit and wallow in the bad news. I have actually, I stopped notifications on my phone and iPad so that I only get, I look at things when I want to look at it. I make sure I'm not seeing that. I turn the radio on very deliberately when I want to. There are days when I just will not watch the news. You can feel it in yourself that your body gets tense and you think, I actually just can't watch any more of this. It's not telling me something new. And I think this is particularly important now because we are seeing the same story over and over and over again. And that's just not helpful. It's not news. It's just, here's something terrible, and I'm going to tell you the same terrible thing each and every day. That's not good. Curating your news, going and looking at what's the latest research. I mean, this is where Google's one. What's the latest research on cures? What's the vaccination rate up to now? Finding ways to find good news, looking at things. So in terms of economics, I like to look at the World Economic Forum, or I do get newsletters in my email from like the UN and the IMF talking about latest research, or Brookings Institute, all of which is research aimed at making the world a better place. Sabra Lane from the ABC has just started The Bright Side, a fortnightly week newsletter, which I've just got my first copy of today, especially just for this. But it's kind of like a discipline. It's almost like your morning cup of coffee or your evening glass of wine. We get drawn to the news as part of us, and especially when we're spending so much time at home and television has become a key part of what we do, or looking at our phones or whatever. You have to be quite disciplined and actually stop, just literally turn it off. And the other thing I just say is make sure that you're going to reliable sources. There is so much garbage out there, and it's really quite concerning to me. please make sure that you're all going to, I'm sure anybody who's on this call is doing this already, but make sure that you go to a single source of truth. And don't read every single newspaper, or, you know, keep flicking from news channel to news channel, because you're not going to see something different. Get the main headlines, get the main points, and then move on. And if you're feeling a little bit fragile in a day, just ignore it. The world will keep turning without you having watched the news for a day. But find things that will, good news stories. There's lots of sources of them.
Okay, you said about 100 amazing points in there, Nicki.
Sorry.
Can I just pick up on some of them to hone in on a little bit? I think the fact that we have a choice, I think traditionally in different families, you know, news intake has been part of routines. So for those people who have newspapers delivered, for those people who, you know, regularly watch a particular news station. So that has been historically kind of a pattern in people's lives. And I think, you know, with technology, it's just kind of gone through the roof, the access to news. So I think the choice is yours is a really, really important point. So curating your own news, and when you're feeling fragile, having the choice to watch it or not to watch it, to listen or not to listen, and really making that choice. The other thing you spoke about, which really resonates with me a lot, is around the looking for the good news stories. There's just amazing stuff going on in the world. It is unbelievable. The innovation is mind-boggling. You know, it used to be governments that were having this space race with each other. Now it's enterprise. It's just unbelievable what's going on out there. The technology, the impact, the focus on humanity, and you know, the combination of business and using profit as a force for good. So there is so much good out there. One of the things that we really suggest, you know, when you're talking social media, is actually be part of creating good news stories. So you see something positive, share it. You hear something interesting, which is positive, share it, and actually help to curate. And if everyone out there is doing their little piece, it makes a really, really big difference. I might just quickly take you through some of the other habits, which I think Nicki's touched on the periphery, but I think might help people who are joining us here today. And some of them are really simple. So smile at everyone. You know, even with your mask on, people can see when you're smiling. So just smile at people. Think about the language we use when we're talking to people. So instead of going out there and saying, "Hi, how are you?" and then answering, "Not bad," you know, empty conversation doesn't really make a positive impact. Use the opportunity to actually create an impact, a positive impact. What's the best thing that's happened to you today? You know, just change your language and have a bit of a think about it. And I think really at this time, I think it's so important to surround yourself with other optimists. Surround yourself with people who lift you. And as Nicki said, when you know you're having an off day, just really kind of be conscious of who you're surrounding yourself with. So Victor, I'm going to go over to you now. But yeah, habits are so important.
What we're going to do next is we are going to go into breakout groups for you to share what makes you optimistic and to spend time in smaller groups talking. But before we do that, you know, if you go and look at Nicki's website and you look at her LinkedIn profile, it's economics for a more equitable and sustainable world. And you know, when we think climate change, you know, with the latest report on climate, I confess to you, I didn't read the hundreds and hundreds of pages of things getting worse. I went to the chapter on what you can do about it. And I know Nicki's very much about that. So Nicki, tell us, your tagline, economics for a more equitable and sustainable world. What does it mean? How can we help you?
Well, thank you. I guess, you know, I started off as a financial markets economist, where most of your work...
I have to go to Rotary.
...is about...
Go to Rotary.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all about, financial markets tends to be a bit about making money for people who probably already have a lot of money. And I kind of drifted slowly and by chance into doing environmental and social impact economics. And it just brings me such joy that I am able to do work that helps other people, even if it's only at a tiny, tiny marginal space. It's very easy to get overwhelmed by climate change. The latest IPCC report, as you mentioned, Victor, is a case in point. But I work with people who are all about understanding, well, what do we do with this problem? And for me, it's everything that I do is aimed at getting some sort of impact to influence policy or people's actions to help them address climate change. And there are lots of ways we can do that other than just at the ballot box. There are many different ways. If you want to go to think about some, I'll recommend 1 Million Women, but there's lots of different organisations. And helping to understand what the problem is, but also there's a real challenge for economists at the moment is to help, particularly in Australia, the government to focus on not what the cost of addressing climate change is, because there are costs, but to understand what the benefits are, because those massively overwhelm the costs. And that is the point. And if I have to keep saying it until I'm blue in the face and, standing around, need a walking stick to get by, I will keep doing it for as long as it takes me. And the same with, social impact. There are so many challenges that we face where, there is disadvantage in all areas of society. But there are also incredible people doing incredible things. And my job is to help them to understand what's the most effective way of doing that. I mean, government doesn't have endless amounts of money, but how is it that they can present their program, whether it's helping, preschool kids, amazing programs right throughout the education system, helping women suffering from, domestic violence, helping Indigenous people to close the gap. There are heaps of things that we can do. And being an active of solving a problem, which is what my job is day in and day out, is just, it's so empowering. It's easy to say the problems of the world are so great, but tag along with the people who are trying to solve them. And that's all I'm doing. I'm not solving the problems. I'm helping the people with the real brains and ambition do that. I'm just supporting them with our work, which is using economics to actually show that you can have social impact, you can make environmental impact and still be economically sensible. Who'd have thought that could happen? Amazing, but it's true.
Well, I always find you absolutely inspiring. We broke up into groups of 5 and 6 people for 6 minutes to look at those questions. What makes you optimistic, and what makes you optimistic for a sustainable and equitable world?
I think that this is just a wonderful example of this amazing habit in action. So we know that when we ask others what makes them optimistic, not only does it lift them, but it lifts us as well. I'm sure everyone, just a nod of the head, was it a very optimistic experience for everyone? I'm hoping so. Wow, what incredible conversations and incredible people in the group I was in. I'd love to hear a couple of highlights from people who enjoyed the conversations. What is it that makes you optimistic? Tanya, I'm going to get you to jump on and share yours because I just love it. I love what you're doing with yourself. I think it can help a lot of people. Where are you?
I'm here. So thanks, Jenny. Hi, everybody. So I'm a natural optimist, as some of you who know me know that. So I've decided each week I'm playing a little game with myself because we don't know what's the difference between what's real or imagined. I'm a yoga teacher and a meditation facilitator, and I help people live limited lives. So this week I've decided to pretend that I'm on a yoga retreat. Because we are confined anyway. So every morning I wake up, I teach my classes, and then I have certain activities that I have planned for myself during the day that I would want to do if I was on yoga retreat. And sometimes, some of it's colouring, some of it's in the garden, sometimes it's playing with my kids, sometimes it's just literally lying on the ground outside and staring up at the sky to see if you can see those no-see-ums flying around. And so, I've just sort of put myself in a yoga retreat so that I can, that's what I'm choosing to do this week. And each week I'm trying to choose something a little bit different to make me feel really positive about, staying at home.
I love it. I really, really love it. Who else wants to jump on and share with us? We might have a couple of people jump on?
Can I nominate Maria? Because I really loved what...
I love that. Thanks, Nicki. Maria, do you want to jump on and share?
Thanks, Nicki. I guess what I shared, look, I work in advocacy for older people. So we're all aware of the Royal Commission and, you know, COVID and all the things that are happening. But what I've done is I'm trying to throw myself into the positive work that's happening in little communities. What's amazed me is the resilience and people coming out that are just doing some amazing work. You know, they're actually coming up with solutions and they're driving it themselves. So I'm out there on the bandwagon trying to grasp some of these amazing stories and examples of and showcasing what can be done, not the doom and gloom. And people need hope and people want hope. And they also want to have a purpose. You know, if a community and people in the community have a purpose and they're driven by, oh, let's go and let's work out a plan and we're going to find a solution to this and we're going to talk to the ambulance and we're going to talk to this person and we're going to talk to the publican at the pub, and pulling that together. And when people are on that same journey and have that purpose and that focus, it brings out the optimism and the hope. And that's something that, you know, I've had days where I felt a little bit flat too. And I thought, oh, you know, I can't hear any more of this. I can't hear about the doom and gloom. You know it's there. We all know it's there. And it's not that we're not acknowledging it, but it's, what else can we think about? What else can we do? You know, the hope and lifting that optimism. And I think there's so many amazing people out there doing some amazing work. And if I could just grab them all and capture them, that's what I'd love to do.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Really. I mean, gosh, wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And just so you know, Maria and everyone else here on the call, we at Project Optimism and the Centre for Optimism, we obviously see out there that people just desperately need a little piece of hope. And sometimes people can cope with optimism and sometimes the continuum of hope moves along the way. But we're, for community groups and not-for-profits, we're doing these pro bono sessions all the time, every day of the week. So if any of you are involved in communities and you think that they could use a little piece of Victor, a little piece of optimism, as Victor said earlier, we are very, very happy to do that. So that's just an open invitation for everyone. Obviously, we have lots of sessions running which are open to the public and you're welcome to bring people on. But if there are community groups out there who really could benefit, please feel free. That's our positive impact that we're giving to the community at, you know, as Project Optimism and the Centre for Optimism. So Maria, wow, the work you're doing is incredible. Thank you. Now I might take one more person. I don't know, Victor, Noreen, was there anyone in your group who could share? Who you think would be of impact?
I was meditating. I was meditating on my own as Mr. Music. So why doesn't someone throw up? Why doesn't someone throw up their hand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anne,
do you want to jump on? Just unmute yourself.
Yeah. Unmute it. Look, there were just two things. One, I'm really grateful for being a member of existing groups like Rotary and
oh yes,
and Friends of Alayu with an East Timorese group locally, because we meet by Zoom if we can't meet in person, and we've always got things to move forward. But my dog gives me great joy. And when I go out walking in Brunswick, there are so many dogs and so many owners, and we're probably twice socially distanced, but they just bring joy and unconditional love into all our lives. And it's very special. That's it.
Thank you. And I think at this moment...
You want me to have a go? Want me to have a go? I do have something to say. Yeah, I want to add to what was said about Rotary. Yeah, I love it. I've got to do something later on. But I'm just holding up this book. I was just saying in the group, my daughter wrote
Rosie the
book
Rabbit
while she was undergoing breast cancer and chemo, and she produced this book. And I was saying, what's making me optimistic is that Rosie the Rabbit's going to make a new outing, except this time round, because she's an OT, she's writing a book about the big black ball of depression on helping children. So she may produce another book yet. She won't make any money, but she's going to be writing books, I think.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Richard, did you want to jump on and share something?
Yeah, just alerted me what somebody said about community and engagement, because one of the keys is about how to keep people engaged and in community. And I looked at our local council's budget, and they spend twice as much money on waste removal than elderly and disability services. And I just think the opportunity cost of capital works versus services given this pandemic, I think there needs to be a dramatic shift in the way that people are spending money today. And unless we operate at the community level, the state government, the federal government doesn't have the tentacles into the community like local government. And unless, you know, my local government's going to spend $66 million on concrete and bitumen, effectively. And I think there's a huge, I said, how much bitumen and concrete is the opportunity cost for a lonely old woman who needs help? And imagine the millions of dollars. I said, reduce your capital works budget this year by 50%, give a discount to people who can't afford it, and start spending money on people where the input cost, not concrete and bitumen, is a lot lower and your return on investment is significant. They're the sort of things that I think we need to be doing today in order to shift the way that money is being spent and get into the services where you get a much more deliverable return on investment.
Richard, you know what? I think passion drives the world. And I think, you know, it's so important to take on those projects that you're passionate about and see the impact we can make. So thank you for sharing that with us. Nicki, I'd love to bring it back to you, if that's possible, and go back to this topic of the more equitable and sustainable world. I know that there's a lot of discussion, and there was in the groups, about the positive impact on humanity, and the people out there are really doing their bit at the moment to make a positive impact. Can you maybe share a little bit about what are some of the really practical things that people can be doing right now, each one of us?
Well, look, to each according to his needs, from each according to their means. But I think, I love to see when people act in terribly selfless ways and, put others before them. And there are lots of very simple things that you can do, even if it's popping in next door to, see your elderly neighbour and making sure that they're okay. We tend to sort of live in our little boxes, and sometimes we forget the others around us who may not have family and friends. But I think the bigger thing is find a cause that you're passionate about and just get involved in whatever way you can. I mean, you can do lots to help elderly engagement. Goodness me, joining Meals on Wheels or working with a social group, going into homes. I used to take my kids when they were younger and all played musical instruments to one of the local aged care facilities, and they'd go and inflict their terrible band music on the local old people. But it was a chance for them to do something. Helps when you have a number of musical children all together in one household. But with their friends, they felt like they were doing something and giving something back, which I think is really important. You can join a community garden, well, obviously not quite at the moment, but even just, I was did a walk around the neighborhood the other day, and there's a thing, I don't know if anyone else has seen it, the wooden spoons kind of community, and people are creating little people out of wooden spoons and making little villages. And I thought, isn't that lovely? Just bringing a little bit of joy to somebody else that's out there. But there are a million causes that need volunteers out there, and we can all pick the ones that make you the most, that resonate with you the best. Often it's because we know somebody who's been through something that we are attracted to that cause. But just get involved. We can't always be lucky enough, like I am, to choose the work that leads us to be able to do that in our day-to-day jobs. but there's, you know, time outside of work to pick the cause that you really like. And, you know, sometimes we're time poor, so there's only small things we can do, but every single thing matters. My mother-in-law used to always say, you know, you take care of the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves. And she was talking about saving, but the same thing goes for social impact or environmental impact. The more we all do, the better the outcome is. So, you know, get part of a collective, get that beautiful positive vibe happening from other people. And that collective vibe really is important, that it's not just a sense of purpose, but you're doing it together. We really are community animals, aren't we?
We certainly are. Now, does anyone have a final question for Nicki?
Hello. So my question is to Nicki is that you are saying that you are very natural optimistic. So, I mean, my question is, okay, you are fine, you are optimistic. How you are going to make the other people optimistic? That is our, I mean, task. How we can make the other people optimistic? If somebody is undergoing a lot of, I mean, depression, or, I mean, her husband died or anything. So how you are going to make the optimistic the other people? That is very important. So what do you suggest? What do you advise?
That's a great question.
It's such an awesome question. And look, I have 3 kids and 2 of them are definitely down and out pessimists. And if you try and sort of say, see the sunny, but they'll say terrible thing. You say, but what about this? And I think sometimes people just like to wallow in something, you know, they take comfort from it. And I think, you know, I would steer anybody to Project Optimism and all of the things that you can learn to be. As Noreen said, she's had to learn to be an optimist. Being an optimist doesn't mean that you don't feel sad. You know, I've had depression throughout my life. Being an optimist is about, what's that expression? You know, serenity is not freedom from the storm, but being able to dance in the rain. And it's knowing that no matter things are bad at the moment, they will get better. And it's the belief that they will get better. And I think it's really important to, you know, it's not about, we were talking in our group, it's not about being Pollyanna and saying everything's fine with the world, because clearly it's not. But it's about saying, well, where can I focus on the good things? How can I really feel in my gut that things can get and will get better? And I think focusing on that, focusing on the good that is in the world, it's kind of a learned practice, because it's very easy to fall into that everything's bad and I'm sad, and I've been there, and you just have to dig yourself out. But there are heaps of tools, and Project Optimism is the best tool that you can have. There are all these beautiful little animations. Especially the one about, you know, watching your news intake. I love that one. You know, but we had so much fun making them as well. And it's about learning, just literally learn optimism the way you'd learn a language or study math or whatever. You can change. And Noreen's already told us, you know, that's what she's done. But yeah, you're right. Not everyone's born with it.
Great question. Awesome question. And I think this is kind of one of the ones that, you know, that I think we get the most. And Victor, jump on here as well. I think this is one that comes on the most. And it's like, well, really bad things happen. And how do people, you know, how do people deal with that when really, really bad things happen? I think it's a whole topic for conversation. Victor, over to you. I think we're going to start some laughter.
I think so. Well, firstly, Nicki, I think you can feel the vibe in the room. You know, you are an inspiration to us. You are a national leader, and you are a national leader in finding solutions, both to difficult problems and simple problems. And for that, if everyone could join me either using the hand or the heart on thing, Nicki, you've given us this wonderful, wonderful hour of joy. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who's joined us. It's a very distinguished group of people who've joined us, as I said at the beginning, from right across from North America to India. It's been a fantastic global gathering. So as we have made compulsory, ever since the teenage participants expressed disappointment at the end of our forgiveness session that we weren't doing laughter, I think we end up with 30 seconds of laughter. And I've asked Nicki to lead us off in the laughter with her 1, 2, 3. So if everyone can unmute, we finish off with 30 seconds of spontaneous laughter. Nicki, will you lead us?
Ready, set, go.
Oh, well, Nicki, we've laughed with you, we've smiled with you. Well, we hope you enjoyed that session and ended up laughing along with us. We'd love you to get involved with the Centre for Optimism. The website's there on the screen, centreforoptimism.com. You can read the material. There's lots and lots, and indeed thousands of pages of material on optimism, over 12,000 quotable quotes on optimism. And we'd love you to sign up, obviously, either for a free newsletter or better still, a paid membership to support what we're doing. And we wish you every degree of optimism, a wonderful day ahead, and thank you for joining us.